Censorship is a common theme throughout Fahrenheit 451. We see books being incinerated in every chapter, a clear display of censorship. But that's just a small part of censorship. It's not just destroying ideas, but stopping their spread. As media became shorter and easier to read, we slowly stopped paying attention to it. In Fahrenheit 451, they chose to burn books, but the real censorship started when they stopped their critical thinking. We've all consumed some kind of content we found interesting, and took some small amount of knowledge away from it. We might have learned to build circuits or how to debate philosophy, but did it stick? Picture what you did yesterday. Did you scroll social media? What are 10 things you actually thought about what you watched? Captain Beatty understood that to censor the masses, you must first make them censor themselves. Picture it, 19th century man with his horses, dogs, and carts. Slow motion. Then, in the 20th century, speed up your camera. Books cut shorter, condensations, digests, tabloids, everything boils down to the gag, the snap ending. If you're constantly fed small, bite-sized bits of information, you look back and you think, where did my time go? We are essentially censoring ourselves by not remembering. In Fahrenheit 451, they didn't start by burning books, they started by making reading unappealing. They made it fast, so fast that we didn't just read a book, we read 10 books. By limiting what knowledge we can absorb, we are censoring ourselves from new thinking. Captain Beatty warned us of useless information. Cram them full of non-combustible data, chuck them so darn full of books that they feel stuffed, but absolutely brilliant with information. They feel like they're thinking, they'll get a sense of motion without moving. Captain Beatty may have stamped out the few who were reading, but the masses went along willingly. There was no protest of book burning, no dictator making it illegal. It was us. We were the ones destroying knowledge. We chose who was elected. We chose to burn the books to make everyone happy. Captain Beatty believed that the key to censorship is simplifying your life.
Look, here's Spinoza. One expert screaming down another expert's throat. We have free will. No, all of our actions are predetermined. Each one says the opposite. And a man comes away lost, feeling more bestial and lonely than before. Now, if you don't want a person unhappy, you don't give them two sides of a question to worry about.
Just give them one.
Better yet, none.
By limiting your choices, you force the comparison of one lifestyle to another. If you never know freedom, then being a slave is your normal.
How can we see anything but the fire shadows in the cave if we're never allowed to move our heads?
We can see how the government in Fahrenheit 451 implemented this technique. Fat too, and didn't dress to hide it. No wonder the land said was for Winston Noble. Even their names helped. Compare Winston Noble to Hubert Hoag for 10 seconds, and you can almost figure the results. Mrs. Bowles, Phelps, Milton, and Monte discussed plainly that one side was destined to win. The outs stood no chance. Are we expected to believe the outs chose to run a candidate that was considered short, fat, and who mumbled, against someone who was one of the nicest looking men who ever became president? Although looks are not a major factor in our elections, when so many people refuse to think critically, looks can become a deciding factor. If we acknowledge that both candidates were chosen by the same party, we see the elections are just a front to keep the populace happy with their leaders. The illusion of choice will placate the vast majority of the public. Recently, the President of the United States signed an executive order that attempts to deport anyone who burns a flag. At first you may think what a trivial thing to worry about, but this shows the overreach Trump is attempting to extend over free speech. In United States v. Ekman, the Supreme Court ruled that flag burning was a protected part of the First Amendment. Therefore, Trump believes he is more powerful than the Supreme Court. Trump is using the Republicans' control over the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government to make executive orders that limit the freedom of every American he disagrees with. This attitude is censoring those who speak out in government for fear of losing their jobs or worse. Overly powerful corporations pose just as large a threat against freedom of speech as a rogue political leader. In 2025, Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, and PayPal forced online popular stores to stop the purchasing of not-safe-for-work games. These payment processors force games that are currently legal to be removed from online stores. The power of these corporations is that a company can't function without being able to receive payment. Steam, for example, is a multi-billion-dollar tech giant, but if MasterCard stopped processing payments, they would quickly fall behind their competitors. As these corporations become increasingly powerful, they are prone to abusing their powers. When the East India Company began abusing its power, their subjects quickly revolted. The ensuing revolt led to the East India Company being disbanded, and control was handed directly to the British government. However, all this unrest led to a widespread financial crisis across India, which caused significant damage to their economy and to global trade. Such turmoil today would ruin countless people's 401ks and retirement plans. We cannot allow for a select few companies to become so monopolistic that they can censor completely different industries with just a threat of canceling their service. The internet is a free and open platform for discussion, right? This isn't the case. The majority of discussion takes place in a few forums, which are regulated by only a handful of companies. If YouTube doesn't agree with what you're saying, there's nothing stopping them from removing your content or even changing it. The vast majority of websites have some version of censorship. Most of them block not-safe-for-work content and censor swearing. There are no places left for a regular person to post their thoughts without any restrictions. In Fahrenheit 451, Captain Beatty discusses how people being offended leads to censorship.
See? Huck Finn. And his friend. friend. The whites knew that you blacks were offended, so what did we do? We burned it. And then Native Son came along, and the whites didn't appreciate that one all that much, so they burned it too. Henry Miller, Hemingway, the feminists don't approve, so into the flames they go.
For the sake of peace. We can only really hope for a future where they stop at their own platforms and don't reach into the real world as they did in Fahrenheit 451. Although we may not burn books, we are still censoring our discourse on these platforms. Realistically, we aren't burning many books, but we are censoring ourselves online. We've stopped learning new things and just keep going back to what we're comfortable with. The first step is not to ban reading, but to stop learning from it.